the wind creep past us again. The Mary's speed has increased to 32 knots, making a magnificent picture as she ploughs through the silver seas. We've been hearing various rumours about our rapid progress and the possibilities of breaking the record. We just don't know if she really has been trying for the blue ribbon. Finally, it's emerged that after being on half speed for 11 hours due to the fog, she has missed it by just 42 minutes. But then she's never been flat out and only touched 34 knots for a short period. As we steam closer and closer to New York, the skies above are crowded with planes of every shape and size, all eager to take their first close look at the magnificent RMS Queen Mary. The crew are hoisting the red ensign to the top of the mast for all to see. It isn't just the British who are jubilantly celebrating. A Swiss passenger has dressed up in full national costume to add an extra splash of colour to the occasion. No ship has ever received such a massive welcome as this ever before. And according to the stories spreading throughout the ship, this is only just the start of the welcome New York and America have in store. As she slows for the American pilot boat, the order's being given to hoist the signal flags to dress her overall. The closer we get to New York, so the number of aircraft and armada of welcoming ships is growing incredibly. They're all crammed with excited spectators, sounding their whistles and their sirens. Even at reduced speed, the mighty Queen Mary's wake is still powerful enough to give a rough ride to that passing American coaster. Now we're dropping anchor between New Jersey and Long Island to allow port officials to board. Long queues are forming in the lounges for the examination of passports. Newsreel cameramen seem to have appeared from thin air, all desperate to get an all-important interview with the Commodore of the line, Captain Sir Edgar Britton.
Speed came up above our expectations, and everybody was very pleased with what the ship did. Are you going to try for the blue ribbon, Captain? Well, naturally, that's what we're out for.
So now we know, it's official. On a future voyage, he really means to do it. Having kept that massive welcome party waiting in anticipation, the Queen Mary's in the safe hands of her river pilot Gustav Svensson and ready to make her grand entrance onto the most important maritime stage in the world. We're edging our way slowly towards Manhattan Island through the throng of twisting, turning, tooting craft that form the most triumphal reception any great line has ever known. It's almost as if every American has decided that from today, the RMS Queen Mary quite simply belongs to them. Thanks to Charles Chislett for letting us join this historic party. On board, everyone is in the highest of spirits and dressed to suit the occasion of the arrival of a true queen. As we make the final approach to New York, there's a blaring musical welcome from America's top bands. And while each one is playing its welcome over the many radio stations, Henry Hall's orchestra, joined by Larry Adler, are responding by playing their famous signature tune. Meanwhile, behind this famous Manhattan skyline, we're told that Broadway is giving one of those crazy ticker tape displays as a blizzard of paper swirls out from all the skyscrapers down into the streets below. lenses of thousands of movie cameras are pointing through the heat wave haze from all angles, above, below, and all sides, to record this scene which rivals any Hollywood blockbuster. As the river narrows, manoeuvring is becoming more and more difficult. Coast Guard cutters have circled the Mary in an attempt to give her protected passage through the seething mass of welcoming ships. Just now, God Save the King was played from one pleasure steamer by 15 girls dressed in white trousers and black hussar hats. It's as if the whole world has suddenly gone crazy. Alice in Wonderland and the Mad Hatter would have felt quite at home here. This reception really is almost beyond belief. Now the United States Line's Leviathan, formerly the Vaterland, is adding her voice to the chorus. For some of the Mary's star celebrities, there's just about time for one more glass of the finest of champagnes before facing the hordes of reporters waiting on the quayside. And now comes the magical moment that the whole of America has been waiting for. The Queen Mary's sirens are silencing the busy New York waterfront for miles around. The excitement is quite simply relentless. We're all preparing now to go ashore. It's precisely 4 p.m. and exactly on time, the powerful Moran tugs are nudging the Mary gently into her pier. It's hot. New York's sweltering in an early heat wave with temperatures in the high 80s. It's been a good excuse for thousands of office workers to get off early to be here to see this spectacular arrival of the Queen Mary. Even the rather sedate New York Times has entered into the spirit of the occasion, describing her entrance into New York Harbor as sailing through an herbaceous border of humanity. The New Jersey Gazette proclaims, "Broadway has found a new star tonight." New York, indeed all of America, have opened their hearts to the Queen Mary and her passengers and crew. It's made little difference who you are, Commodore, purser, chef, deckhand, or even bellboy. Everyone is getting the full celebrity treatment in the streets of New York and the bars and clubs of Broadway. Just the slightest hint of our English accent is being greeted by a "Hey, Limey, let me buy you a drink." Everyone from the ship is being feted and wined and dined, and Broadway's bars are full of gossip about what's been happening on board the Queen Mary since we docked. There have been great celebration dinners. 1,400 people have visited the liner this evening alone, wandering all over from top to bottom. And to meet the visitors' thirst, 9 extra bars have had to be installed on the promenade deck. After the frenzy of yesterday, this morning the ship opened to the public. Special sightseeing buses came from all over New York. It's reckoned that 6,000 people a day will pay $1 each to visit her. All this money is going to the Missions to Seamen and other related charities. As for the sightseers, it seemed that they really wanted their dollars worth and took everything they could lay their hands on as souvenirs. Cutlery, plates, cups, ashtrays, glasses and salt cellars. Even potted plants and brass nameplates have all disappeared in vast quantities. A greedy New York lady was politely prevented from marching down the gangway with one of the Mary's very expensive paintings under her arm. For us ashore here on Broadway, our souvenirs are going to be memories of the Seafield Follies and as many other attractions as we can get to see. Meanwhile, work's been going on refuelling and restoring the ship. It's Friday afternoon, and at precisely 3:30, we cast off to start our triumphant voyage home to Southampton. As we sail back down the Hudson River, past where the great German liner Europa is berthed, the Queen Mary is a very happy ship, and we're sure she'll remain so to the end of her seagoing days. She and her crew have already made thousands of new friends. The captain's taking with him over 30,000 fan mail letters that have come in from all over America. The Queen Mary has won more hearts and followers in a single voyage than other ships will do in a lifetime. She has become everyone's friend. Even on the homeward voyage, the greetings are still flooding in. This one's coming from the Hamburg American liner New York. Cunard White Star's decision to make Southampton the Queen Mary's home has had a tremendous impact on the port. At first it seemed this wasn't going to happen. The port owners, the Southern Railway Company, under the chairmanship of Sir Herbert Walker, weren't willing to spend nearly £2 million on a dry dock that was big enough to accommodate the ship. In the end, Cunard White Star gave an ultimatum: no dock, no ship. They threatened either to move all their operations back to Liverpool or even build their own port on the south coast of England. That blackmail has worked, and the 1,200-foot-long King George V dry dock will be built. Southampton is destined to become the busiest passenger liner port in the world, with Queen Mary standing proud over them all. And as the years go by, the sight of her magnificent funnels towering over the warehouses and buildings continues to thrill people in their thousands. They crowd to the windows of every train passing through Southampton in the hope of getting just a glimpse of the great liners berthed for as far as the eye can see. But primarily they want to catch sight of the world's most famous liner, the superstar of the maritime stage, the RMS Queen Mary. Despite her instant world acclaim, people everywhere still long for her to do one more thing: to capture that prized blue ribbon from a lesser rival, the French liner, the Normand. And so, on a warm August afternoon in 1936, the Mary once again set sail from New York. With the help of some more very rare archive film, we can again step back in time and see for ourselves just what it must have been like to have been aboard the Queen Mary on this historical blue ribbon winning voyage. As she steams majestically down the Solent, conditions seem ideal for a fast crossing. Although her owners have previously expressed their tongue-in-cheek disinterest in breaking the record, word has swept the nation that she really will go for it, and every family in the land is hoping and praying that she'll do so. Crossing the English Channel to Cherbourg, her engines are performing well, and the weather forecast for the Atlantic is good. In Cherbourg, she picks up passengers from all parts of Europe and Western Asia. They've travelled by road, rail or air to the French port to join the great liner. Rumours are still rife among the passengers and crew that she really is going for the record this time, while Cunard White Star continues to promote the idea that such records are of no real interest to them. If the French are actually thinking for one moment that the Mary might be considering having a go at taking the record from their beloved Normandy, they might just try to create the odd little mishap here and there, which might somehow slow our progress. But so far, so good. In the crow's nest, 210 feet above the ship's waterline, the lookouts have an uninterrupted view across the great expanse of ocean. From here you can get some idea of just what it's like to be a lookout, but not what it's like in the North Atlantic winter and heavy rolling seas. Right on time, the Mary sounds her sirens. Unceremoniously slips out of the harbour to start what appears to be just another routine Atlantic voyage. On her previous voyage, she'd arrived late in Southampton due to fog. Now, as we steam past Bishop's Rock, the official Blue Ribbon starting line for the westward crossing, everything looks almost perfect for a very fast time. As she turns her bows towards the Atlantic Ocean and America, the order is given for full steam ahead, and the giant ship now rises to the momentous challenge. So much is going to depend on the Mary's chief engineer, Yorkshireman Llewellyn Roberts. He looks confident and calm, but he knows that the eyes of the world are once again focused on the minute-by-minute progress of the Queen Mary. Down below in the main engine room there's a tremendous battery of machinery, and men like young Bobby Johnson, a junior engineer who's been with the ship since the fitting out at Clydebank, is helping to take care of her 4 great turbines. There are 27 boilers with 160,000 tubes, together with 220 oil fuel burners. These control panels monitor every ounce of power in this enormously complex system. At the heart of the Mary is the greatest floating powerhouse ever built by man. It generates enough electricity to meet the lighting requirements for a city of 150,000 people. "4,000 miles of cabling have been used to connect all the electrical installations. Maintaining all this equipment in perfect working condition is a Herculean task, requiring the expert attention of more than 50 engineers. Every element of this machinery has its own blueprint, noting every plate and every screw, and was planned on paper to the last detail before construction began. To the layman, it seems almost impossible to have built such engines inside a ship. Just to make sure it all worked, each machine, regardless of its size or capacity, was first assembled in workshops, tested, taken to pieces, and then reassembled here inside the hull of this great liner. And down here it's like being inside a giant aircraft tank. It took hundreds of shoreside technical staff and engineers to design these hugely powerful engines, and now all their work is finally being put to what is arguably the biggest maritime test ever to take the Blue Ribbon. The pride of our nation rests on the success of this incredible engineering. At her service speed of 28.5 knots, the Mary's engines consume 1,020 tons of oil a day. But at speeds in excess of this, the consumption increases by nearly 50% to around 1,500 tons a day. In terms of fuel burnt per distance, that works out to something like 1 metre to a gallon. On the first day, the run has been 472 miles at an average speed of 29.5 knots. The second day, she's averaged 30.4 knots, and it's clear to all on board that she's doing very well. So long as the weather holds, she stands an excellent chance of a record westward run. The world's watching and waiting for the regular news bulletins on her progress. Schoolboys all over Britain dream of one day standing on her bridge. There's the French liner Ile de France of our starboard bow. We've been wondering how her crew and passengers feel at seeing the Queen Mary racing past them at a speed that their much idolised Normandy simply can't match. However, the French are treating us with decent traditional maritime respect, sounding their blaring foghorn to wish bon voyage, and we immediately respond to those good wishes. Despite having had to reduce speed because of mist and fog, we've reached the official Western End finishing post, the Ambrose Light, in 4 days and 27 minutes, at an average speed of 30.14 knots. That's some 3 hours faster than the Normandy's record run. Of course, we've also got a record return run to do to complete the challenge, but New York gives us an ecstatic reception, knowing that the Queen Mary will soon proudly bear that blue ribbon. The Holland American lines, Volendam and Veendam are joining in the celebrations. And then the Mary is booming out in triumph with her own mighty sirens for the whole of New York to hear. But it won't be long before life aboard changes very much for the worse. With the coming of World War II, the Queen Mary, together with her newly launched sister, the Queen Elizabeth, were converted for troop carrying. Those young men were thrilled to sail aboard such famous ships and to clamber to every possible vantage point. During the war, Queen Mary steamed nearly 750,000 miles all over the world, the sisters carrying between them over 2 million people. On one voyage alone, the Queen Mary carried, including her crew, over 16,000. Their wartime service was invaluable, and in his tribute to them later on, Winston Churchill said, "Built for the arts of peace and to link the old world with the new, the Queens have challenged the fury of Hitlerism in the battles of the Atlantic. Their sterling efforts shortened the war by at least a year. The world owes a debt that it will not be easy to measure." After the war, the two queens returned in triumph to New York, with thousands of American war heroes and GI brides aboard. The ships always received the massive welcomes they've now become quite accustomed to. Those returning American servicemen settled back in civilian life to work to make this great country greater in the post-war years. The Cunard White Star liners were restored to their former glory and started to play their own important part in generating the prosperity that helped to make New York one of the world's foremost ports. Once again, these ships towered high above the city's waterfront warehouses. Americans treated the liners as their own. They were so popular that passengers often had to book a berth as much as 6 months in advance. Their arrivals and sailings were very much a part of the rhythm of energy and excitement that New York thrives upon. The Empire State Building was about to be overshadowed by the many new skyscrapers that were shooting up around it. But the two queens would continue to dominate the lucrative North Atlantic passenger trade for almost 2 more decades, earning profits of £250,000 a voyage at the peak of their popularity. And so the mighty Mary reigned supreme. Sailing from Southampton's newly built ocean terminal, she went on to make 1,001 Atlantic crossings, to voyage 3,790,000 miles, and to carry well over 2 million passengers. She played the regal hostess to countless hundreds of the world's most famous people, politicians, sportsmen, millionaires, industrialists, and royalty, including the Queen Mother and the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. But it was the movie and music stars of the day who always caught public attention. Gloria Swanson, Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton, Rosemary Squires, Alec Guinness, Noel Coward, Charlton Heston, Joyce Grenfell, Peter Sellers, Liberace, Frank Sinatra, Spencer Tracy, Phil Silvers, Henry Fonda, Betty Davis, Robert Mitchum, Anna Neagle, Katharine Hepburn, Johnny Ray, Deborah Kerr, Bill Haley, Laurence Olivier, John Mills, and many, many more. And these great names often became personal friends of the Mary's crew, and many of the stars wouldn't sail unless they were assured of the attention of their favourite steward or stewardess. Stars such as Liberace would often play for the passengers, but of all the prominent people she carried, none quite equalled her own claim to international fame. The company was later to become known simply as Cunard, and to receive a letter with the name Cunard stamped on it was excitement in itself. But to actually work for them or to sail aboard one of their ships was the true mark of success, be you cabin boy or commodore. Today, over 60 years after her famous maiden voyage, the Queen Mary lives in semi-retirement at her berth in Long Beach, California, where thousands of tourists still flock to see her. She sailed from Southampton for the last time on the 31st of October 1967, and with her went so much of our national identity and pride. There will never be great Atlantic liners quite like her again, and it's doubtful if there will ever be another great liner so universally popular and famous as the infinitely majestic RMS Queen Mary.
We were the big ships, we watched them